Hello there, I'm Teresa Norton, and this is The View from Abroad, the podcast that takes a look back at columns I wrote about, touching conversations with Hong Kong taxi drivers, at strident opinions on world events, marital mishaps, and childhood memories. All of these crazy columns appeared in Hong Kong South China Morning Post on Saturday mornings between 1993 and 2000. And it's kind of fun to look back on them and see what still feels relevant, what's changed. The world's changed. I've changed. And so have my guests. And my guest today, I met actually here in Portugal when he and his lovely wife, Missy, were traveling through on their way back to San Francisco, where they live. And Tom Donald and I started talking, and we discovered that we had things in common. In addition to our mutual friend, Adman Chris Kime, who brought us together and has previously been a guest on the show. Tom Donald has worked in broadcasting, as have I. He lives now in San Francisco, and I was born there and grew up there. He's a musician and an audio production guy, and also worked in advertising. And it's interesting to hear how his musical background has brought him back into the recording studio in a very specific way. And we're going to hear more about that after we listen to this, the column he chose, written about 3 decades ago. Lessons in Grooving to the Sounds of the 60s. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but when the crumpled permission slip to perform in the annual Christmas Carol concert appeared in the depths of Grace's blue backpack, the echoes of a melody bounced around in the empty space between my ears, and I began to sing, Mel Hallelu Bashem Bel. Not your traditional holiday ditty, I'll grant you, but then Mrs. Schwartz was not your traditional teacher. The year was 1968, and I'd signed up for Glee Club as an elective class in my new junior high school. As we 12-year-olds assembled in the music room, which was divided in half, my future husband sat on the other side, a trumpet in his lap in the orchestra class, Carolyn Schwartz strode in thigh-high black leather boots, black nylons, a black faux fur miniskirt with matching bolero, groovy electric lemon puff-sleeved blouse, crowned by jet black hair in a Vidal Sassoon asymmetric bob. Whoa. This was no choir mistress. She had black eyeliner that made Cher, who was then referred to as Cher Bono, and Twiggy look like washed-out wimps. She had a standard-issue gray record player, but spinning on that turntable were no standard-issue tunes. She hipped us to music of the day during the September following the Summer of Love. Country Joe and the Fish, Grace Slick and the Jefferson, then Airplane. Joni Mitchell, Buffy St. Marie, and Arlo Guthrie. Whoa. Nobody was late to Glee Club, and if they were, the response from Mrs. Schwartz was always the same. I don't care where you put your damn ass. Sit down and listen, and groove to something new, or something old. She would arrange music for us, and some of it was pretty obscure. Okay, sopranos and tenors. 1, 2, 3. I can see her jaw set, eyes hooded as she tipped her head to the side and extended a biba-clad arm to snap the beat. 1, 2, 3, and... Mrs. Schwartz took a potentially mind-numbing job and made it into a mission. The boys and girls who took Glee Club as a 7th grade elective had elected to embrace the world of music, and she made sure it was always something worth singing about. New artists, new music magazines, new recording techniques. You must remember, this was the San Francisco Bay Area during the 1960s. We were very lucky kids. Unbeknownst to us, we were growing up in the fertile ground that yielded Carlos Santana and Quicksilver Messenger service. When Christmas rolled around, Mrs. Schwartz made sure we didn't get stuck in old little town of Bethlehemville. She produced beautiful arrangements of Silent Night and The Little Drummer Boy, but she found some amazing music we'd never heard of before to flesh out the program. Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabella. and Havana Shira, the latter a Hebrew song with a sort of Gregorian chant melody, which we sang in a round, the melody turning back on itself with every new phrase. Oh, it was gorgeous. Simon and Garfunkel's The Sound of Silence provided a contemporary but rather somber note, and we finished with what may well have been an African chant, again in a round, Mel Hallelujah Bashem Bel. A pretty cool concert, huh? She found a way to celebrate all our differences, but if I were honest, and I'm sure if I could find her today, she'd probably say it wasn't so much about us kids. It was about celebrating the music. We were the instruments through which some really cool tunes could flow, and in the process we learned to understand something a little more interesting than I saw Mommy kissing Santa Claus. Now, when I see our Catholic collection of music spanning Frank Zappa to Frank Sinatra, I think, weren't we lucky? Wasn't Mrs. Schwartz a hip music teacher? Mel Hallelujah Bashem Bel. Well, hello, Tom, and thank you for popping in to re-examine that column and see what still feels happening and what feels pretty passé.
Thank you, Teresa. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually honored to be part of your podcast.
Aw, well, thank you. You know, Mrs. Schwartz Glee Club class, and she was really ahead of her time.
I was also struck with her outfit for the day. That was it's quite well described and a little... Well, it was a little stunning, actually, to read.
She really had a sense of style, and she didn't look like any of the other teachers. That is for sure. Okay, so what's changed? And one thing I think about is, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but it seems to me that being
Teresa, that's a phrase you use on occasion, and I would like to refute that, if I may. You're not nuts. Your memories of those times, which, you know, I'm older than you and I was there as well. Your memories are pretty spot on. So, you know, let's excise that phrase. Maybe I'm nuts, because I don't. You're a lot of things. I don't think you're nuts, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I could be wrong about this. I haven't lived in the United States for over 40 years, but it feels to me that being a teacher today, and not just in the U.S. I mean, I have friends in the U.K. and Australia, and it just feels like it's a little more fraught with danger than it was back in those days in terms of what can and cannot be talked about in class.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think those forces that would control the young minds, would control the kind of material that the educational system is purported to advance, are more stringent than ever, and they make it difficult. And I think it's always been a dangerous profession. And I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 10 years. I taught film, and they weren't the age that you're describing, but it is dangerous in the sense that you have these young people's lives in your hands to some degree, speaking metaphorically. And in this column is an indication of that, is an indication of how did these young kids react to what this teacher was trying to showcase, not just her outfit, but just the ideas that were contained therein. It's a fascinating account of education back then, and I think there are certainly some parallels today, but you're absolutely right. It's much more difficult in today's, frankly, political environment. It's charged. It's, I think, driving a lot of teachers out of the profession.
I have to make a confession here. This is so hard for me, Tom. I actually complained about Mrs. Schwartz.
Oh, my.
I think I was the only kid who complained about Mrs. Schwartz.
On what grounds?
Well, I'll tell you what. My dear mother, who was not a rebel, but she saw something in me and encouraged it. And I think what we would say today was that she encouraged me to set boundaries. That's not the kind of words we would have used back then. But, whether it was a bully in class or whether it was a teacher, it didn't matter what age, Teresa was not going to take guff off of anyone. And I must have come in late to class in one of those, early days of Mrs. Schwartz's Glee Club and been the recipient of, I don't care where you put your damn ass. And I thought, I grew up in a house, Tom, where there was no swearing. I never heard my parents fight. No doors got slammed. I was living like in the Donna Reed show. And so I went into the school counselor and I said, I'd like to lodge a complaint. I'm like 11 or 12, right? And he goes, well, okay. About what? And I said, I'm in Mrs. Schwartz's Glee Club class, and I don't have to listen to that kind of language at home. I don't see why I should have to listen to it in the classroom. I was like the horrible kid in the movie that goes, I'd like to complain. I think the boys and girls are dancing too close together. I mean, honestly, that counselor looked at me like, is this a Freaky Friday kind of thing? Are you actually 57 years old in an 11-year-old body? What's wrong with you? But anyway, I've got that off my chest. But one of the things that I want to say here is that, she played the fish cheer as it was performed at Woodstock. Give me an F. Give me a U. Give me a C.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. Well, I see now why you went into radio. I think there's a parallel. I think there's a connection. Besides having a great voice, it's almost lulling to listen to your voice.
Oh dear.
No, seriously, you have a. I worked with a lot of voices, and I still do, but it doesn't sound trained. You can if you're in this business and you're at it long enough, you can spot people whose voices have been trained or molded, or this is how we say certain things. But one can also spot voices that are just beautiful from the start. And I think you have one of those. Honestly, it's mellifluous. It's, I can just see why you had such a long career.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
It jumps out at me. Because I work with, audio so much.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your story. Sorry.
Well, let's talk about, just talking about that, going back to that fish cheer and Country Joe McDonald. That song, just never mind the give me an F, give me a U, give me a C, finish the recording yourself. There's also the lyrics to the song. I pulled those up. Well, come on, mothers throughout the land, pack your boys off to Vietnam. Come on, fathers, don't hesitate. Send them off before it's too late. Be the first one on your block to have your boy come home in a box.
Yeah.
We think we're living in the worst of times.
Mm-hmm.
But, I listened to a podcast called The Rest is History. We're not. Another phrase from that era, keep the faith, baby.
Yeah, keep the faith. That's right. Yeah, keep on keeping on. Yeah.
Keep on trucking.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, listen, now I'm going to be 70 next year. Are you willing to fess up to your vintage?
Yeah, I just turned 79.
Oh my gosh, you look great. Well, listen, when I was in junior high school, you were living in a closet, trying to learn to play bass. Talk to me about that. What was the story with that?
I was part of the generation in the 50s. I was part of the archetypal baby boomers, and was supposed to, living in Connecticut, I was supposed to go to an Ivy League school, and sure enough, I did, and a little Ivy League school, and but I didn't want to. I didn't want to be there. It was the time of the counterculture. It was the Beatles. It was growing your hair long. My hair used to be down to here.
Wow.
And I did not want to be stuck in the woods of Maine studying subjects I didn't care to be studying. So one year they decided at the end of the year, my services were no longer required at this school, and they let me go. And Can
I ask one question though? How did your folks feel about that?
Well, it was incredibly disappointing. The numbers were different, but it was a stretch for them to send me there. My folks did fine. They provided me with a really good life, and no complaints. But it was difficult. It was a challenge to handle it because I didn't take any assistance. So I squandered that essentially and moved to Boston. Pretended to go to Boston University, but really wanted to come to San Francisco because I'd heard that that's where the Summer of Love was happening and people were running around playing music and doing various other things in the privacy of wherever they were doing it. And I wanted to be there. So I hitchhiked to California. But I did come out here with the intention of joining this movement, this change, this is really well named counterculture, because I'd grown up in the 50s, as an athlete, and I was, doing the things I was supposed to do, driving a sports car and all those things. I didn't want to do that anymore. And I came out here, and that's when the period you're describing happened. I lived in a closet and had one electric bass that I was trying to learn how to play. And, I'd always been a writer, so I was writing songs even back then. And
when you say you lived in a closet, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to color that for me. What do you mean you lived in a closet?
Well, it was a closet with a door, so I had room for my, little bedding to lie down in the closet and go to sleep at night. But I didn't have any money. I didn't, I was living the life of, they were called hippies at the time. We hated that phrase, but I was dedicated to learning how to play, not just bass, but I had a guitar and was trying to play around on piano. And one reason or another, I managed to do it, and hook or by crook and the strength of my dubious sensibilities, I managed to craft this life. And it lasted through the entire 70s. And by the end of the 70s, I was pretty successful. I was working all the time, had a recording studio, and finally decided that I'd had it with the music industry. I was done with it. And that's when, since I'd been doing jingles, which is music for advertising, I figured that was the end to becoming a madman. My father was a madman back in New York City. He worked on Madison Avenue.
Madison Avenue.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I got a job as a copywriter, and I did what people are supposed to do in advertising, which is rise through the ranks, get new jobs worth a lot more money, and became a creative director. And eventually, since I had written so many commercials, I figured I could direct commercials. So I started doing that. At any rate, that brings us up to now. And well, not now, but about 15 years ago, just got too old. It's a young person's business. And I figured, well, I still got my instruments. I'll go back and play. So I did. And that's the evolution of Hit Records.
Wow.
And what I'm doing now. So
I wonder, I think about this and think about, teachers, right? And you get to a certain age where you don't teach anymore, you retire.
Right.
And I always wonder whatever happened to Carolyn Schwartz. In fact, I went online and found a little picture of her, some other student of hers who was, I think, the same year as I was, and not so insane about setting boundaries. He was singing her praises.
You got past that. That was that.
Well, this is, listen, this is what this show is all about. It's my little mea culpa. This is.
I think it's your little thank you. I really do. I think you should rephrase that. It's your thank you to all those people in your past, in your history, those people you've encountered who've helped you become who you are. That's a beautiful thing to do. And there are undoubtedly people out there who are doing that to you because you have helped other people become what they are. That's how the world works. That's what we do.
Yeah. That's a wonderful, wonderful, a wonderful thing for us to remember that, when you feel like there is so little that you have control over, you do have control over the way you treat people and the way you share whatever you've learned along the way.
I would make that a stronger statement. I would say we have control over how we can impact other people's lives without even knowing necessarily that we're impacting them, just by being the people that we are, trying to be a nice person. Most of the time, we're not always. Sometimes we're mean. Sometimes we don't mean to be, but we are. But over the cumulative lifespan, what have we done to help other people become the persons that they want to become. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. And of course, it's always colored by, well, what have we done to kind of screw other people up too? We've done that too. We've all done that.
Yeah.
But I want to bring something up, which I thought of immediately when I read this story of yours. And you're probably familiar with it because you're from around here. But back in 1970, and I don't want to out your age and all that, but back in 1970, there's a teacher in Mill Valley. Her name was Rita Abrams. And she had a song that actually got on the hit parade, as it was called back then.
Mill Valley, California,
Exactly.
that's my home.
And this Carol Schwartz story is analogous to that in some sort of general way. But it's similar in that there's a teacher, a young teacher. She was, by the way, Rita Abrams, she was a good teacher, and she brought these kids in, and they had professional musicians on the date and all that. But it was really an experience for them. And I was just thinking about, how did Rita Abrams impact these kids, 11 years old?
That's right, because they sang the song.
It was a positive, uplifting song. We love our little town. And I can hear it on the radio. Turn on the car radio. There it is. That's me. That's me on the radio. The first time you ever did a radio, did you have that feeling? Hey, that's me. That's me. I'm on the radio. That's me. That's Teresa.
It was pretty. Actually, my first job in radio, I was living in Agana, Guam, and of course, it was thrilling. I found that astonishing and exciting. So yeah, pretty cool. Yeah,
Pretty cool indeed.
Okay, listen, let's take a little break here now. What I want to talk to you about is, listen, as you've shared, you play guitar, you play bass, keyboards, you write and produce songs. So talk to me about Never Say Die, where this idea came from, because you wrote the song. Is that right?
I did. It's over a 2-year span. It started out as a lot of things, at least for me, started out with a few chords on the piano, just kind of, what could this become? It's based a little, to some extent, on 70s, sort of music that's near and dear to my heart. 70s sort of soul music, I guess you'd say. I suppose a little reminiscent of your jingle. The Never Say Die phrase came to me, and if you look at my visage, and I'm an older guy, and what do older people think about? One of the things that we think about if we're this age, perhaps any age, is our own mortality. And it occurred to me, this phrase, never say die. Of course we die. Of course we do. Nobody gets out alive, to quote Jim Morrison. But what have we done over the breadth of our lives? And how does this advancing age impact how we feel about ourselves and about the people around us? How does it impact our relationships? Not only the people we love, but just people in general. The main artist on is a friend of mine named Nick Beard. He speaks the words, and I felt like speaking was the better way to go. He's a beautiful singer. Teresa, he's got a wonderful voice, singing voice and speaking voice. You'll see me in this case and another singer, a friend of mine, Jimi Tracy, in the background singing, if you were to click on the link. If you type in hitrecords.co, hitrecords.co, it'll bring you to the landing page, and then you'll see Hit Records on YouTube, and click that. That's a button, and then you'll see it immediately when you get there.
Okay, so we are back, and this is my favorite part of the program, where my guest gets to tell a true story that was somehow unearthed by something in that column that, mattered to them. So, Tom Donald, I'm all ears.
We talked about Rita Abrams a while back, and I was immediately reminded that I met her once, and just in passing. I think it was in Mill Valley, actually. A lot of rock and rollers moved to Mill Valley from San Francisco because we're going to move to the country, and we're in this band. We're all going to share a house.
I used to go see the Elvin Bishop band there, and
Yes,
yeah,
of course. And I bet in some cases they all live together in the same house, which, in retrospect seems like the worst idea in the world. But at the time, it was exciting. Anyway, I met her, and this is sort of a postscript to the story, which isn't particularly nice, but it is true. And it was a brief meeting. There's a place in Mill Valley called the Depot, which used to be a bus depot and has been for a long time a cafe and a bookstore and kind of a gathering place. She was there. She had her guitar. And so I, being the brash, much younger person I was, I approached her. I said, "You're Rita Abrams, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, okay." She didn't want to hear from some young guy, but I started talking to her. I was just unafraid, I guess. And for all of this flower power, wonderful, world that we live in, Mill Valley, California, she wasn't very nice. She wasn't very nice to me. She kind of put me off and, didn't really want to talk to me. I was kind of a fanboy of sorts. I was telling her that, gee, I know Rick Jacobson is the producer of The Loving Spoonful. I mean, holy cow, he did your record and he did Do You Believe in Magic? I mean, isn't that great? Wasn't that something? And then you're on Ed Sullivan, but she wasn't mean. She wasn't dismissive. It was a counterpoint, if you will, to this sort of love and flowers sensibility that the song put out. And
Tom, I'm so glad you shared that, because it is a reminder that of this point that you're making about the impact that we have on people. And it may have just been not her best day, but the fact of the matter is it had an impact on you and how you imagined the conversation might have been with her, and the disappointment in having it not be what you anticipated.
Well, that's a really good point, and I think there may have been some of that. But what I think inadvertently, I think what she helped me to understand was Rita Abrams, just a person, just somebody who probably didn't really, was excited to make this record and have it be somewhat successful, but really she had this life, this persona thrust upon her that she maybe didn't want.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be, bugged at the depot by some young dude who, what are his motivations?
That's a generous, I think that's a nice insight into you on reflecting on it and saying, look, on the one hand, she came across as not being very nice, but on the other hand, we just don't know what's going on in other people's lives. We don't know what they asked for or what they've got. As you say, she might have just been very happy to be the little music teacher. That sounds very dismissive, the little music teacher. Carolyn Schwartz would give me an earful for that, I can tell you. But she may have been the music teacher and very happy just being in that environment.
Or she may have been bugged, 4 other times that day by some, fan people showing up and saying, Rita, Mill Valley, California. Who knows?
One of these things that haunts you for the rest of your life.
Well, I have never achieved notoriety. I've done really well in my life. I'm proud of that and happy for that. But at the end of the day, we're all people. We're just people. Yeah. And, I've been on some big stages and playing music, but so what? I'm just a person, just a guy.
Yeah, that's right. I'm thinking about when I was in Hong Kong, early in my career, when I was doing radio, and then I was also on the theater scene. There was a professional company there, and I worked with them quite a bit. And one of the things that I did get a taste of in a very small pond, that the downside of that is people have an expectation of what you're going to be like before you've even opened your mouth.
Yeah.
Whether they like you or they don't like you.
And the expectation doesn't match up with the reality.
Right.
And I think to some extent, going back to Rita, I think she just had it. I'm just Rita. I got this guitar and this piano. I play this, and, don't expect something from me that I'm not. I don't really want to talk to you. I'm just here having coffee. Give me a break, will you? Okay, Mill Valley, California. Here I am in Mill Valley, California, but I'm just a gal. I'm just somebody here, just like you. Give me a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I,
Well, that really is a lovely way for us to kind of wrap things up here because as I said, this
it's a fairly
this
dystopian thought. I hope
no,
it's.
no, but look, this column about Carolyn Schwartz. I mean, I didn't say anything in the column about having complained about her telling me to put my damn ass on the chair, But
Did she have a deep voice like that? The way you
oh,
just.
she had a wonderful voice, and she had this jaw that came out. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I drew a picture of her,
Your boots.
like a cartoon picture of her. If I could find it, I would show it to you now. It was her. It really was her. She was very unique looking. She was like a sculpture. She was an amazing, amazing woman. And, she had her days too, as everybody does. And that's maybe how we wrap this up, to just sort of say, look, whatever you are, whatever your expectations are of the people around you, sometimes we just have to cut people a little slack and don't take it personally, right? And maybe it's just what's going on with them that day. So I'm going to recommend everybody go to hitrecords.co, not com, hitrecords.co, and have a listen to Never Say Die. I think you're going to enjoy it enormously. Tom, thank you so much for coming and spending this time with me. I really appreciate it.
It's really been a pleasure. It was a pleasure meeting you. Was it now 6 months ago? It was so much fun to hang out with you in that beautiful place where you live.
Thank you. I feel very grateful for that.
Be well.
Breathe all the time. This is how I used to close my radio shows. Breathe all the time and come up slowly. I also used to say, watch out where the huskies go and don't you eat that yellow snow. But now I just say, breathe all the time, come up slowly. And whatever it is that you're going through, and maybe if you've been a little mistreated by somebody in a way that is not harmful to you, but annoying to you, hang in there, because the next conversation you have, well, what if it's good?
Indeed. Well said.